Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream where I'm going to be doing a little update to this old project of mine. This is Recursive Subdivision, and I made it maybe 2 years ago at this point. It's so old that it doesn't even use repeat zones under the hood. We can see that it's just a ton of node groups again and again. And today I'm not going to be updating this because it wouldn't take long, but I just kind of don't want to do it. My main thing for today is that I want to make it so that this recursive subdivision is trailed through time. Now, I've seen this effect a couple of times before in Houdini and I think in geometry nodes occasionally. But basically an evolving pattern where the history is trailed as time goes on, like it just moves down and all that happens. Now, I do need to mention that I'm using Blender 4.5b, and there seems to be a bug where it keeps crashing after a few minutes. Now, I haven't been able to find the proper crash log for that, so I haven't been able to report that, but I have a gut feeling that this is something to do with Vulkan, with Eevee Next. Actually, real quick, I'm going to change the theme so that the node editor does not look as bright, the grid part of that. So let's go and save the preferences, and we are back. So in the case that we do get a crash or two, I'll probably switch back to OpenGL and see if it'll not crash. So yeah, let's get moving. So with this setup, I'm going to turn off this extrude mesh setup that I have over here and start fresh with a new geometry node. Now again, we already have the faces moving along like this, though I think I'll turn down the amount of subdivisions. Again, I'm surprised this setup still holds up, even though it's not great. Again, inside here I could probably optimize a ton of this, but it is what it is. Oh, and if you're wondering about the theme, this is the plasticity theme on the Blender extensions page, because I thought, oh, that could be fun. I like how everything's much more rounded. So yeah, that's cool. So let's add in a new geometry node and start trailing this, and I will be saving periodically in the case that it crashes. But yes, it is the beta, so if you find any crashes and stuff like that, please make a bug report. In my case, I'm trying to find out where the crash log for on the GPU side is, because I've never done that before. Okay, so here we have a simulation zone, and we're inputting the geometry, but that only happens once, when the simulation begins. So now we want to use a join geometry node to join in the current geometry every single frame. And then what we're going to do is transform the previous geometry, which is up here, down by, say, 0.1 meters. So if we do this correctly, we should see that we're getting the effect that we want. It's a very simple effect, it doesn't take too long, but I should ooh, that looks very nice, wow. Very cool. But the thing is, we want it so that each stage is connected. So how would we go and do that? Well, I have a few ideas, and I'm not sure which ones would be better. Because I could just go, we might, actually, yeah, what would be better? I can have a simulation stage before this one where we go and store the quote-unquote velocity of each vertice, because the topology does not change, which is why we will be able to trail all this. But I am not sure. And a few other things I kind of want to do. Actually, let me darken the background because it's, you know, a little bit too bright right here. Let's just keep the normal light here and call it a day. Okay, let's go and scale the faces, the elements in this case, which is the faces, because that will give us a much more interesting result. I think 0.75 for now, so we can see that those faces are moving and all that's good. So to get the velocity, how would I do that properly? I want to do it in the most efficient way. I guess I could just store the velocity for every single... Oh, the music was not on loop. My bad. There we go. Let's see, let's get chat back up. So I'm going to use a simulation zone to store the velocity. I am not used to this theme, wow. It feels so familiar, yet so different. So we'll start with that, but then, Oh, wait, I forgot. This is how you go and store the velocity per frame, right? You go and do that there, and then you output that there. Right? Or is it one behind? You have the geometry, and then you have... Dang, I forgot how you're supposed to do this. Well, long story short, I should just be able to sample the index, get the position, and then store that on the main one. And in theory, that should work. So I get the position and the index, and the index is the index, because the geometry is the same, just different positions, same topology. And then, no, let's go and store a named attribute right here. Oh wow, this feels... I might have to switch back to the old theme. I'll just label this val for velocity. So if we do that, in theory, we should get the information from the previous frame, but we actually need to subtract the current position. I forgot. There we go. If we do that, that should work. Though I feel like I have one more geometry output here, which probably is not ideal. But with this, oh, we'll get a crash. Okay. There we go. Yeah, it seems to crash. I don't know what specifically causes it. Let's go and recover, autosave. I have a feeling it's whenever I full screen a window and then stop that, because that would happen in Blender 4.4 as well, and it was annoying back then too. So here's the autosave, which didn't bring us too far where, yeah, we were. But anyway, it'll be fine. Let's just clean slate it, just for ease of use, another simulation zone. So again, we plug this into here, we plug you into there and you into there. So that happens, that's the one from the previous frame. And this one, we then go and use the sample index, I think. Vector, store the named attribute, save again. Vector, vector vel. Let's do that, get the position subtracted by the current position. Or is it the current position subtracted by... I think we flipped these around. Yeah, that seems to be right to me. And we can plug that in there, get the index. There we go, plug that into there, now we're good. Now to test this, we will connect the second one here into the output. That should work. And then we'll use an extrude mesh node, turn off individual, and make the offset the velocity that we have. Okay, so let's take a look at this and see. Oh, that appears to be working. We can see that there is a duplicate. That seems to be one frame in the past. And now I need to see if... Actually, wait. I could make this a little bit easier on myself. Possibly. If it works, it works. That's what I've learned after doing this for so many years. Just don't worry about it. If it works, it works. But now that we do have this, we can go to the next stage. So another simulation zone right there. So this one right here, do I make this a node group? Maybe. Yeah, let's make it a node group just for convenience sake. Nope, that is the wrong thing. Whoops. Node, make group. There we go. So this one is our quote-unquote trail. So trail... Well, no, that'll just be our trail. Or no, the connective tissue, and then this one will be the trail. So this will be a connection. And then this one will be the actual trail. So again, we'll use the transform geometry node. Save again, because I feel a crash will be coming along. So again, we move the old one out of the way, then we join the new one into the fold. Right there, it'll just be like that. We'll set that to be -0.1. So we will need to, as we can see here, oh, the velocity is 0 by default. Why would that be? Ah, that is why. There we go. So we have that, and we can see that that is functioning as intended, but we need just a little bit more. So we have that, that is functioning correctly. Man, it is quite difficult for me to see what's going on with this theme, so I may disable it. And maybe the inputs there should be flipped, but it's probably fine. Another thing that we need to do is make it so that there is a 0.1 meter offset in the Z direction to match the transform geometry node, which that should be the other way around, like this. So we can see that the connective tissue almost works. It should work perfectly. What is its problem? Oh, wait, is it trying to offset by the normal? Not entirely sure why there's a slight error there. But another thing that we must do is that we need to delete all geometry that is not an edge. So delete geometry, we'll make this an edge. Or no, this will be face. And only faces. And then here we'll make this edges, which in theory, again, should make this work a little bit better. I still don't know why there's a slight error there. Doing something just a little bit wrong. Just not going far enough? And then we'll need to fix the normals there, because that is very, very messed up. Let's see. It's just like a little bit off. No, I always, It's more efficient to do the extrusion before they're stored in the simulation zone, I believe. So here we'll do that, and then we'll use the normals, smooth my angle, you know, classic stuff. We can see that that works pretty well, but there, again, that little error should not be like that. Let me just do a little bit of this. That's negative, which means now that needs to be done like that. Still doesn't match perfectly. Though it should. It really, really should. That's negative 0.1, yes. I'm missing something. Something slight, but something. Let's go and raise the light up so that looks a little bit better. And I could always keep, just for the effect, the original geometry up on top to cap it off. Right here, we'll do that. We'll put that there. So, oh wait, it needs to be the one. There we go. Now we have that. Yeah, I'm gonna change the theme back. 1 second, everyone. Just a little hard to see. Blend your dark. There. Oh, wow. It's so clear. Here we go. Very, very nice. Back to... It is lighter. Like, it feels a little too bright now, just because it was adjusted to the other one. But yeah. Okay. We have that. Oh. So I am doing the velocity a little bit wrong. Although... Like, I just need the... Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I could just... do that and then store that after, right? Just move that entire part outside of the zone? Yes. Yes, I could. And... Yep, that is as intended. It works out quite well. Just move that entire thing outside of the simulation zone. Probably a molecule faster, but yes, quite nice. Let's go and save. No crashes, which I am quite surprised by. Let me read the chat real quick. Let's see. Inline sockets makes geometry nodes look funny. I'd like to think it's slim, because we would think it would be so, like... non-inline sockets, we're just used to that. So now that we have it, it looks a bit funny. But if these were made to be not inline, it would look very, very, very wrong. Let's see. Hey Cartesian, thanks for streaming. I didn't get a chance to watch the one before yet. That was going over the 4.5 changes, and we ran into crashes. Which, oh my gosh, my timing was impeccable with all that. Almost to the second. Good thing I saved. Good habit. With these versions that are, I'm assuming, being fixed. See, so we have that, and then we'll make a group for the trail. I'll probably need to throw in a merge by distance, but I'm still somewhat confused as to why not a perfect seam right here. It's just slightly off. I know I'm doing something wrong. So let's go and flip those around. Nope, that makes it even worse. Like, it seems like it's almost correct, but it's just not. Let's set this to be 0.5. Because maybe, nope, that's not it. But that does lead to a quite cool effect, gotta say. Let's see. When you played with the first LTS beta, was dissolved edges angle threshold included in that point and got merged a day or two after the tag? I do not know. I don't know. If it got merged after the beta, that means it's in 5.0. Which there are already cool things happening with 5.0, but yeah, I do not know about that one. Okay, why would that not be doing what I'm telling it to? Why would there be a slight difference? It should literally be, oh, that's where the previous point was, right? So if we look at this, it should be perfect, which, oh, it actually is perfect? Seems to be perfect. Those seem to line up. Here, let's simplify this with like three subdivisions, just to be sure. Yeah, no, that is perfect. So maybe it actually is, and just the, why is it imperfect? Is it, oh, is it interpolating? Oh, it must be interpolating. That kind of sucks. Well, we can compensate for that by just using a set position node. Unfortunate, but nothing to cry over. That will come later. Do an offset? Or wait, now I can just store this here and just do, oh, old position. Or I could just plug this into there. I find the simple ways after I do the complex way. Though, that is how I prefer it. Do the complex way, and then we find the most efficient route. It was merged as a bug fix. It'll be in LTS. Ah, quite nice. Dissolve edge angle threshold. Okay, so that's good news. I'm not too familiar with that, I need to capture this beforehand. I forgot. So, whoop. We don't need to store as a named attribute. We're just going to capture it, which does basically the same thing in this case. Just less stuff I need to name specifically. Okay, well, let's do edges and see if that functions. Okay, then that'll be -0.1. There we go, now it's perfect. Okay. Ooh, that looks quite nice. It's like ice cream. Let's save that and then up the count here. Ah, yes. Quite nice. And I can randomly scale how big these spaces are. Let's see. Random value. Let's set this, yes, between 0 and 1 so that we can just... Ooh, that is quite nice. I'm a big fan. Wow. Okay. Quite nice. And also, I should mention... Sorry, I will read that thing in the chat real quick. I can offset the phase, so they don't need to be entirely square. I cooked beforehand. Yes, look at that. I could just make it keep sliding and all that. And reset the sim. Delicious. Quite delicious. I could delete the geometry if it becomes too old, but I would have to put in an age parameter for that, which I think in this case, not super necessary. Not super duper necessary. Wonder what this looks like in cycles. No crashes as well. How have we not gotten a crash yet? Oh, it looks quite good. Though I think I wanted to make this look really good in Eevee. Let's check the GI, that's fine. Turn off bilateral filter, always do that. Thickness, set that to be 2 because by default it's just too small. And crash. Alright. Well, I guess I can read the chat when I get Blender back up and running. Okay, is that all working as intended? Did we lose anything major? Nope, everything seems to be alright. Okay, toggle window full screen. I need to assign that to Alt F11 again, because that used to be there. Okay. Maybe a dumb question, but can't you delete geometry based off its Z position? Yes, and that would actually be easier. Yeah. I guess I'm just like, oh, I want it to delete over if it goes over like 60 frames or something like that. Both methods are valid, but yes, deleting by the Z position would just be more efficient. So delete geometry. I'll do it inside the simulation zone so that I'll dynamically remove geometry. So I'll use this separate XYZ, make this float based. Now the position. Go. So we'll say if the position is less than, we'll do 2 meters. It will -2 meters. It'll just delete itself. There we go. So now we should see it deletes. Right? Oh, that was the X. Whoops. Make sure it's the Z axis. There we go. There we go. I've been thinking about like the axis flipping, going from Z up to Y up. That's why that happened, definitely. The Mario Kart World OST truly is sublime. Have you had a listen? Not quite yet. Is it on YouTube yet? Mario Kart World seems like a pretty fun game. I don't have a Nintendo Switch 2 just because I don't play many games off base, but I don't plan on getting consoles, but maybe the Switch 2. Maybe I'll get that in a while. Let's see. Yeah, no, the deletion at the bottom works quite well. We can see that little outline, and that's because the segments are not merged by distance. So I could do that in the midst of everything happening, but it will be a bit slower, or I could do it in post. I think pre is fine. Like when we bake it, it should be okay. But yes, Mario Kart World seems to be very, again, the price is quite high, but it's very interesting. Like when I heard open world Mario Kart, again, as a big fan of Mario Kart 8, it looks amazing. Even 12 years later? I think it came out like 10 or 12 years ago. It still looks very close to Mario Kart World. The world is just, you know, open world, so it's even more impressive they could do that. But yeah, open world Mario Kart. I didn't think it would work, but it looks like it actually does. Like going from one track to the other. I'm very surprised. But yes. What was I going to do before the crash? Yes. I want to make the scales per face randomly evolving over time. So here I'll set this to be 100 and add this to the noise scale and then plug this into there, the face scale. And then we will use the scene time seconds value. Set this to be that, and we can set the randomness to make it more like that, but that looks more like a sound wave, but I want it to be a little more just varied. Yes. I'm cooking. And then here we can have that like that, but I feel like we need to move the camera a little bit. How do we light this well? So the subsurface scattering, I'm actually quite surprised that Eevee Next is looking it's looking okay. Quite surprised. They are updating Eevee Next and I've been enjoying the updates. Again, we haven't run into a crash in a while, which I am very surprised by. But I don't think the crash, and this happens in 4.4 as well. It seems to be when I'm in full screen and then go out, it likes to crash for some reason, but I just can't find out how or why it happens. And it seems to be also when the compositor is on. So it's something to do with Vulkan, I'm sure. But I need to figure it out before the beta. Well, It's an LTS release, so if someone figures it out, it will happen, but it'll get fixed. But I'm still very unsure as to why that happens, and it's been a little bit annoying. So the depth of field, I'll go and turn that off for now. I need to just focus a bit more on the lighting. So, well, speak of the devil. But yeah, it happened immediately after I did the full screen on full screen and all that fun stuff. So that seems to be the cause, and I'm still not sure why. Okay, so I just need to not go into full screen on a window. Yeah. But the crashes seem to be much more apparent now, which is odd. Camera, let's save this again, turn that off. So I'm going to go in the shader editor, go over to world, and also I'm going to just delete all these other tabs because they're not necessary. I usually keep them up just in case. They're just not necessary. I'll keep compositing, yeah, no, that's enough. So here I'm going to use the light path node to switch between, light path, yeah, there we go. To switch between one background and another based on if it's a camera ray. So we'll plug that into there. We'll move this up to here, hide all the other inputs. So now, as we can see, I could change one and the lighting on the other will not change. So here I can make this a nice thing like that, and then boom, we have a nice looking background already without affecting everything in a negative way. Although, how do we light this in a nice way? Like, that looks quite nice, but I feel like we can do more in the shader. Like the subsurface scatter, oh. I forgot that happens. Old files and versioning and all that. I feel like subsurface scattering, if we set it to 1, that looks a little bit better, but there's a little trick that I'm not sure I'm doing here that I really should. It's ambient occlusion hue shifting. So here, if we take a look at the ambient occlusion, again, it looks a bit different than EV Legacy. Like, again, stuff like that in EV Legacy would be much more filled in, I think. Maybe. Or, no, not in that case, because the thing's getting shorter. But if we go and use a 1- to invert this, we can... Ooh, that actually looks good already. For a nice stylized result. But let's go over to here and just focus on the colors, because if the colors here look good, the result will look good. So if we do this, we can see that with a little hue shift, goes a long way. Then right here, it translates okay, but I think the shadows are a bit too dark. Again, I could always go with the stylized results. But should I have to? I mean, it looks good. But do we go... I don't know, how stylized do we want this to be? Is the lighting... What kind of lighting are we running here? We're running filmic with very high contrast. What happens if we switch to AGX? Looks more realistic, but again, more washed out. So... And actually, what is this very high? Let's change that to be none. And I'm not quite. Punchy. Punchy's okay. Like, I've never quite gotten punchy to work as I want it to. And here, the strength of the sun is already 12. Is the exposure wrong? No, that seems to all be correct. I could raise it, but let's go back to filmic because that works. And let's go to just high contrast. High contrast should be fine for this. Let's go and raise the ambient lighting. Feels like the camera... I don't know. How should this actually look? And for the visual background, I could change it to white. Again, feels a little bit off. The roughness is like that, so let's experiment with this a little bit more. If we just do that... Again, it almost works, but it feels like the shadows are a bit too dark. Which raising that does not raise the ambience all too much. Until it goes over a certain value, which is quite interesting. Is that due to the... Oh no, that's AO. Or is it? Ah, another crash. Okay, well, let's boot it up again. Maybe I should just have my Be Right Back screen as the fallback. Who knows? But yes, here we are, back again. Let me... Oh no, let's go and recover the thing. So recover, autosave. Are we back? Okay, we're almost back. There we go. So we'll save this in its current state and then fix the lighting once again. I'll read the chat in a second. So filmic, high contrast. Again, the roughness here seems to be... If we turn off ray tracing, just off base. Oh, that took a second. If we do that, we get nice reflective stuff, but if we do that, we get nice diffused stuff. The radius here, we could make it like that, which it looks essentially unshaded. Yeah, let's turn ray tracing back on. Oh, I do quite like that, so maybe I just need to reel in the subsurface scattering. Ooh, yes. Quite nice. Okay. Let's go and read the chat. Do I connect that again? I could. That might be a little unnecessary. There we go. Okay, let's read the chat. Ooh, quite a bit. Let's see. People talking about Mario Kart World. Yes. The depth of field looks real nice. Yeah, maybe I should re-enable that. Let's see. I swear I swear I end up using that camera ray trick in all my projects. Yeah, I use it quite often. Because again, with professional projects, quite often they just render an alpha and then replace the background anyway, so this is just skipping a step. Ooh, I quite like that. Even though, is that just the plain... It's like the plain background, but I just get to, again, control that. Ooh. That's very nice. Dang. I could always add in a bevel to the geometry, even though it might be slightly expensive. Try that. A nice bevel. Well, nope. Too laggy. Too laggy for my tastes. Let's set that back to 1. Again, I could add in a gradient. Again, I could do whatever I want with this. I think blue is okay. Very pale blue. Doesn't feel as good. And then white, yeah, no, regular blue feels just fine. Then with the sunlight, let's just do a few rotations to see if anything feels a bit better. Too much. Yeah, it seems like that's fine. Again, rim lights are always the way to go. But in this case, the surfaces aren't super beveled. So that may... Oh, another crash. Here we are again. Okay, so yeah, that's set to 1. Here we go. Let's see. Man, I wish I had just a percentage of your knowledge with geometry nodes. I'm truly amazed at what you always create. I never dove into geometry nodes, not really a math wizard here. When I first started geometry nodes, I was definitely not a math wizard. I just learned it because I wanted to or needed to for work. So with a lot of this, again, I like to think of it like the shader editor, but instead of operating on pixels, it's on points. Where it's like, oh, here's a noise texture that operates on the UV map, which in this case, there are no generated UV maps, which I should fix. Which means that I don't really have textures on it. But it's all just numbers and data. Like in here, it's just, oh, scale the faces by the noise texture with a random value per face, and we add the time. Again, very simple math, and it just runs. Now, simulation zones do take a bit of finagling to work out, because it's just like, oh, this is the input from the previous frame, and you gotta take all that into account. But again, the math can be, each of the steps can be relatively simple until you go to collisions, which that I haven't even figured out fully. But yes. Will they entangle? No, they are mathematically guaranteed to not entangle because it's recursive subdivision. They literally can't. The parts move and then all the other stuff just works based off that. Though, I could always replace the faces with circles or subdivide the faces. Or just do a subdivision surface on these, set it to like 3 and call it a day. I'll start to lag, but I could just do that, yeah. Could do that here as well, just for the end cap. But yeah, I could do that as well. Which, you know, could look cool. Let's set this to be like 0.9. Always an option. But I think I like the square version a bit better. Though I could change these to curves. Fillet the curves. That could work out quite well. And then I could fill the curves, even though I would have to... Oh, this is getting very experimental, but it could be fun. So, 2 curves, because we are... No, wait. 2 curves, mesh to curves. Set this to be faces, because we do have that option now. Let's use a fillet curve into there. Set limit radius just so that it tries as hard as it can to give it a nice bevel. That's nice, quite nice. And then to fill the curve, I'm a little bit unsure about this. So fill curve, how will that work? Again, it should be guaranteed to not... Oh, that kind of works. And then we'll need to set the material again in post. Though I'll do it after the entire setup. So there we go, right there with that little deviation. We have that, and... Oh, it remembers the... Oh. Let's get the normal... Or wait, what is it? Normal, smooth biangle. There we go. So... Oh, shoot. one little issue right here. The limit radius option. Wait. Oh, n-gons. Wait, do n-gons help? No. Odd. Is it the fillet that's making this work? Let's set this to 0.001. Ooh, that is... Oh no, is the triangulation making it so that the indices change? That would suck. That would suck a lot. Unless I use split to instances, potentially. And then we set this to be per spline. And then we do all that separately. That possibly would work as intended. And then we could just realize the instances off base and then connect. Nope. Same issue, unfortunately. Dang, I didn't know that fill curve would do that. I mean, I could always... Dang, I didn't think that would happen. Maybe it's a mixture of the fillet curve. Let's take a look. Okay, the fillet curve adds in some ambiguity, which is unfortunate. Though if I were to resample the curve afterwards... Oh, would you look at that? Seems to resolve that quite nicely. We could just do that. We don't need to realize instances. Although there is a slight issue, which is that all of the points are now evenly distributed, which is not great for optimizations. Yeah. I could just do evaluated. No. Maybe it's just the fillet curve is making the, Oh, does it merge the ends when they get to be too big? Because that could be a reason why. Because if I set this to 0.001... no, there's still issues. But maybe it's these really small ones that are doing that. Let's set it to be even smaller. Basically... well, it's a different pattern. So... Yes. Seems to be... Maybe it's invalid and then it does that? So I either need to make sure that the faces are guaranteed to not be too small, which I could try by setting that to be like this. So in theory, there we go again. Again, I don't know why the bug is happening a lot more often than it did in 4.4, which again, it would happen fairly rarely in 4.4, but for some reason. Oh, let's recover our autosave because I did not save all too often. There we go. Once again, that seems to be fine. Oh, yeah, we're pretty much back. Okay. But yeah, once that one bug gets resolved, that'll be nice. Oh, and the random per thing gets removed as well. Let's see. Yeah, I know a bit of Python, but not all the complicated stuff with dot products and matrices. Yeah, dot products, they're so useful, and they're really worth putting your time into learning them, but they can be confusing in, like, their use cases. Like, the function is simple, but the application can get kind of head-turny very quickly. For matrices, I find to be a little bit easier, just because it's like, oh, it's the location, rotation, and scale. Now, you could go a level deeper and see, oh, okay, it's the three axes, relative axes of the object or whatever you're working with, and then the position input, and then four values that, or 3 or 4 values that aren't really used in geometry nodes, because they're very, I forget in what cases they're used, but they're not used that often, at least not in cases I've seen. But in some cases, they can be used. But yeah, the X, Y, and Z axis, and then the position. They're not that bad, but they are very daunting just because of the amount of data that's stored. Okay. You need to, like, overlay your CPU temperature in OBS just so that we can watch your PC suffer? Well, this is fairly light. It's not that bad. Not that bad. And if I just set the counts... No, the length would cause tons of errors. But yeah. I mean, yeah, this is slow as hell. But it does function. It's just because when the bevel becomes too small, it does that. But I think in this case we don't need the bevel or the fillet. I think we can just leave it as is. Let's go and save this and then remap the this guy right here. That reminds me, I haven't been in Houdini in a while. I should go back there though, although since we've been playing with themes, I found a nice little one that we can use. Nice Houdini theme, which seems to be Houdini from a while ago with all the gradients and such. Yeah, oh, so fun. Man, the readability doesn't really work with Blender. Yeah, I do need to get back in Houdini. It's been a bit too long. Let's see. It's pronounced fillet? Oh. I thought fillet was the right way to do it and fillet was the wrong way. Could have that mixed up. Maybe because I'm just like, oh, let me say it a little bit. It's French, right? I forget. Resample curve is my best friend whenever curves are giving me problems. Yes, it is quite nice. I need to change the theme back. 1 second, everyone. Yeah. Cool, but readability is not the best. Let's see. Okay, so now we have this, and I think that's almost good enough to post. I mean, zoom in the camera a bit, that we can see more of it. Then maybe add in some details, because again, the UV maps are missing from this setup. So I guess I need to go and make my own. So for each face, I forgot how I did that. The extrude, do we have the... Which geometry node groups do we have? Oh no, the extrusion got eliminated. So this be trail setup. Yeah. So to make a nice UV map for these cubes, we will... Oh. Why does that look like that? Do I have a different system font at the moment? I shouldn't. I wonder... Looks like it's just missing. Anyway, okay. We want to store a nice UV map. So vector, let's set this to be UV. We'll make this a 2D vector on the face corner domain because that's how UV maps are stored. So here, oh, how do we do this? We need to get the index and face. Let's see. We need to go to the mesh topology ones, and we need to go to corners of face. And then, oh no, we need to get face of corner. So we have the corner index, and then we do this, and then we get the corner index. So this will give us a number, and then we just need to say, hey, if this is equal to... Here, let's take a look at this. Hopefully the overlay works as intended. We should see... face corner? At the corner index, and then we do that. No, that's the corners of face. Oh, no, we... Oh, we just need that one, okay. I forgot. But here we can see we need this to be a less than. So here we just got one gradient right there. We can use a combine XYZ node, that'll be our X. Then this one just needs to be the other gradient, which this should be equal, or no. Oh, we need an ellipson for that, so we could change that to be a float. We could just say, oh, if it's equal to like 2 or 3 to do that, but in this case I'll put this to be like 0.75. This will be 0.1 or 1.5. That seems to be correct. So if we just do that and plug that into there, we should have a working UV map. Yep, no, that's working. So there we go, a nice UV map. Let's save that. So in the shader editor, what did I label? I labeled it UVs instead of UV. Don't know why I did that. Must be a legacy thing, but there we go. And now the UV map, if we take a look in the shader editor, should propagate. No, it doesn't. So if I store that on the point domain, we'll just break the rules a little bit. We can see that it extends. Yeah, now that's applicable in this situation. Not quite. Messed up a little bit. Geometry node editor, so we'll evaluate this on the face corner domain and it'll just convert it to the point. Fair enough. There we go. There we go. So we evaluate this on the face corner domain and then it automatically converts it to the point and then we do a crash. Here we are again. Such a pleasure. Recover autosave. Autosave has been recovered, but it's not as soon as I would have liked. Alright. Here we are again, less than 2. Let's go and save this in its current state. Let's make this an equal, except make it a float. Set this to be 0.75, and then 0.75 and 1.5. Do that, combine XYZ, evaluate on the face corner domain, and then finally store it on the point domain. So again, evaluate on face corner because we're using face corner data, and then it'll automatically convert it back. And change this to be UVs. And save it again. Go to the shader editor, take a look. We can see that that is working as intended. Very nice, very good. So if we were to use, say, noise texture, we can see that that happens. Now, we could always make a UV map for the extrusion as well, but I kind of don't feel like doing it. Let's see. Could you explain? Oh, let me catch up on the chat. Let's see. I think I read all of that. Can a geonode attribute be called in the compositor in 4.5? Not directly, because the compositor just uses what is rendered, but you could output an AOV. Oh, what does the acronym mean? Like arbitrary output value or something like that? Where you give this a name and make sure that it's, like in the output here, you just label AOV, so the name here will be A. We'll label this A. So we can output the data. It can't go directly, but it could go indirectly, if I'm correct. Yeah. Because it just needs to be a shader pass for it to be passed into the compositor. So you could get the data as an AOV. People do that all the time in the industry. But just be aware that, you know, you need to do one little step beforehand. Yep. Okay, so how did I make the UVs? Arbitrary output variable. Yes. So how did I use the index? So let's do a little look through and see how I did this. So we'll be using the viewer node with attribute text enabled. And hopefully this doesn't crash. So here, with this topology node, it's face of corner. So we'll evaluate this on the face corner domain. It should do that automatically when I hook it up here. But we can see, actually, let's do this after the faces are scaled, just so that we can see this here. So we can see that this gives us a number from 0 to 3 on the face. So it'll just give us an index of every single corner of each face. So then I just say, hey, if it's, less than 2, so 0 or 1, we get a gradient. It'll be true over here, false over here. And then if it's like 2 or 1 or 2, then it'll be true, and then that, we combine the two, make sure it's evaluated on the face corner, because again, we're getting face corner data, because again, this is corner index, and this should say, let's see, yeah, it's on the face corner domain, and then it gets converted to a point just so that it gets propagated when we do all the other stuff. But yeah, the topology nodes are very useful, but they do take a little bit to wrap your head around. So look at the manual if you're ever confused. Let's go and move this over to here. Should I go? Yeah, let's put this into a nice little frame right there. Put this little guy into a frame. Not going to do any labels, even though it keeps prompting me to, as I should. I should label it. But I won't, because I am slightly lazy, and we're almost at an hour, so this project is going to come to a close quite soon. So let's go and save this once again, go into the shader editor, and, should we make let's go into, that looks quite nice as well, very cloudy. Let's look at different colors and see if we can get anything that looks cool. That seems to be alright. I could make it so that the hue shifts over time, but I wanted to try that liquid glass that Apple was doing. Let's see. I remember Windows Vista had that kind of look to it. And to be honest, I wasn't too much of a fan of it back then, because the glass was like very diffused and all that. But it looks kind of cool on the Apple version, even if the readability is a little bit iffy. So we have this. There's not really too much to refract off of. So I could change the HDRI, but we'll let that slide for now. Way off, and let's see just how different colors work. Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. Let's just go back to this. Change it back to Eevee, because that's just what this whole thing is made for. I think that's pretty good. Again, I kind of want to change the range of this by a bit. And I'm not too fond of how light it becomes at the end, so I'm just going to remove those so that we can have something like that. We have a little bit of that happening, which I'm okay with. I think like the background is a little darker than I was hoping for, so let's bump that up by a bit and then get another crash. Absolutely lovely. You love to see it. Again, I don't know why it's happening, and I couldn't find the log for it. If anyone knows, feel free to put it in the comments where that log is for, like, you know, just stuff in general. Because I checked the TMP folder, the TMP folder, and all those, all the things that I found on Google and in the manual, but nothing was there. It's as if it crashed with no log to show, which is very unfortunate. Okay, I think we're back. Yep. So what's that, crash number 7 or 8? Betas tend to crash. Yeah, but that's the weird thing. Like, Blender 4.5 has not crashed this much until the beta specifically. Which either means that they're changing something and fixing something, or just something's gone a little awry. Background. Let's see, depth of field. We could turn that on again and do that. Though, still a bit hesitant about the depth of field. It's always something I could always add it in later. So for more lights, we can turn on a bit of this, just to add in that little extra thing to that. I don't know, just a few lights to really show the reflective nature of this thing. Yeah, pretty cool. The background gradient I'm still a little bit iffy on, so let's go and change that. Again, the visual version. So I'm going to use a noise texture set to be 1 dimension, get a texture coordinate. In this case, we will get the window, plug it in. Actually, we'll keep that 1 dimension, separate X, Y, Z so we can get X and Y. I'm going to mix between the two to get a angle. This, so that I can get this looking more like this, although can I subtract it to get the other way? I don't know. Use a greater than and then use a mix color. Here we can take a look at this. Yes, I was thinking more like this. We'll have 2 hues, make one just a little bit lighter, plug it into there, take a look at this, and then who knows, let's go and maybe turn the value up a bit. Turn up the noise, turn up the roughness. Yeah, that seems to be pretty nice. Pretty cool. Although the lighting still feels a little bit off. So I'm going to delete these lights. Just that and then that. Maybe I can make it glow from the inside. But no, this seems to be okay. Subsurface scattering is a bit much right now. I'm just going to experiment with this a little bit. We're almost at an hour. Oh no, that's the way to go. Just turning that down a little bit. Again, we can change the hue so that it lands in more of a purple or more of a blue. And again, without subsurface scattering, it's okay. That's actually an interesting look by itself, but not quite what I'm going for. That's more of what I'm going for. And then geometry nodes, let's go and lower this down. My voice is going just a little bit. And there we go. So now we can see the range is moving and it's looking quite nice. You love to see it. And we can also change the side phase because that's the step. And by the way, the recursive subdivision is up on Gumroad. Now, granted, it is a little bit old, but still fully functional. Could do that. And then just change what other parts would look, angles would look good. I think the angle that we had is pretty much perfect. And another crash. Okay. Yeah, still don't know why it happens. Again, I assume that's just the Vulkan backend being a little iffy. Do we go orthographic? Oh, that, I do kind of like the look of that. We could go with that. Yeah, we'll go with that for now, for the depth of field. Kind of feels weird for orthographic depth of field to work. Actually, no, can that exist in the real world? I'm not sure. If you just had a gigantic array that all just fired in one direction. I'm actually not sure. Okay, let me read the chat before we go. Are you using Vulkan? Yes, I am. Let's see. Procedural marble texture on the white parts. Maybe. That could look cool. I could always, in the shader editor, because I know this moves at 1.1 meter per frame, I could just use the geometry input here, have a noise texture, and then just have a vector math add and do hashtag frame. Wait, we need this to be 0.1 per frame, so frame divide by 10. I was like, wait, what was it? Because for some reason my brain was like, oh, delta time, yes. So we can see here that it kind of freaks out a little bit, but we can just mix the coordinate between the moving and non-moving ones based on the normal. But we'll do that and that. Use a greater than, separate XYZ, of course. And we are now over an hour, so I do need to wrap this up. So if we do this, we can see that doesn't feel quite as nice. Oh well, we can play with that later. So we could do that. We can change the texture, make it rough, or we can make it kind of a marble. Let's use a Voronoi to at least attempt to make that. So we'll use distance to edge, even though it is rather expensive. Maybe change the roughness, use a greater than node, turn on normalize just for kicks. Do something like that, use a less than, so that we get something like that. So we need to really turn up the roughness in order for... Details, let's go and turn that down. Not quite. It should be a bit more... Should be more wavy. But let's use a mix RGB just to see what's going on. This will be the last test before ending the stream. So here we'll make this nice, or... Oh, the black and gold marble. I do quite like that. Have a nice metallic look. But no, the texture is moving too fast. I'll put that on hold for a while, but I may come back to it because it could potentially work. Map range, let's just try that real quick. Invert that. Oh, I mean, that's pretty cool. I'll keep that in mind. Displace the input vector on the Voronoi. Yes, I could try that out. But yes. If you think of orthographic as infinite zoom, then I don't think depth of field would work, but I don't know. Yeah, that's why I'm assuming. Because if you were to make an orthographic camera... Oh, there, another crash. If you were to make an orthographic camera in real life, it would just be like a ton of just ray casts in one direction. So you wouldn't really be able to blur that. You wouldn't really be able to blur it based on how far away something is, I don't think. Could be wrong, though. But yes. Looks a bit weird with the Voronoi. The same on the top faces, yes. But yeah, that's it for today. I hope you all enjoyed. A nice little project. Again, this project could be done in the older versions of Blender as well, but I'm using 4.5 because I wanted to analyze the crashes. Though I probably should have switched to OpenGL to test if it would crash based off that, but I can save that for next time. But yes, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.